Good morning, Kimberly here. I am your nurse of 25 years, just doing a little get ready with me, and I hope you'll follow along. And if you are not subscribed, I would really appreciate it. Just hit the button and let's get into it. I have been doing some reading, and as I mentioned in one of my last videos that I was going to be doing, I started the Henrietta Lacks Story, which I said I was going to do, and we're starting with an eye palette. I'm going to play with my little Lorac that I've had for a while. There's some clay colored tones in here, so we're gonna go on the brow bone and then move into it. So yes, I started the Henrietta Lacks Story. I'm only in the first early chapters of this, and wow, I am already just shaking my head, and I'm just saddened by a lot of it. We're gonna go in right here. Yeah, Henrietta Lacks was sounds like she was a phenomenal woman. I really appreciate the story so far. The author, and I will quote her name correctly in my next video. I'm sorry I don't have it here. It's The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. I downloaded it on Audible, and I've been listening to it, and yeah, it has filled my mind with a lot of things, and I knew it would, and I was ready for it, because I really wanted to get into learning more about her, learning more about what happened surrounding her history, what led to this discovery, like how all these balls and motions had to be in place for this to all occur. And one of the most saddening parts of all this, she was a Black woman, and she was what they would call, serviced, little money, didn't have health care, and because of her inability to pay and her status as a Black woman, it was done quite a bit where the indigent population, their tissues and studies and things went on to do studies without their consent, because they felt like that there was the presumptive consent because no payment was given, and their services were giving them the authority to go ahead and use their tissues and do what they needed to do. Now, Henrietta Lacks was a woman who was, this all went down in the late 40s, early 50s, culminating to the final cell extractions, and ultimately that she didn't die from the cell removal or the use of her cells. She died from her cervical cancer that was aggressive and pervasive, but could have probably been stopped. She had a cervical cancer that probably had been going on for years and was clearly missed. Hold on. I'm not gulping in there, and I probably did. Clearly missed in exams. She actually gave birth just months before her diagnosis, and she had been having pain the year before she actually delivered her son, her last child. I'm going to go in with the cognac, which is just a little extra darker right here on the wing. So Henrietta Lacks gave, she lived on, I want to say she was a mother and a phenomenal woman to begin with. And I really appreciate the fact that the writer in this story gave credit and credence and homage to her family and to her life. And I love hearing about the fact that, I think it's important to understand that she had a life. She had a very vibrant life. She was beautiful and vibrant, and she had children, and she was a mother and clearly a businesswoman. She worked very hard, and she knew how to keep her family afloat despite the challenges that she faced. They moved to Cloverdale during the time of the Great Migration for her husband to begin work in the steel mill during the wartime era. And, there was some discussion in that about, her love of dance, her love of music, her love of life. And that they moved from their home on a tobacco plantation to this area in Cloverfield for a better life. And that's what people do. We all want a better life. We all, especially when, we're young and raising families, we want a better life for our children. And I just give her so much credit, because leaving any place that you live to go live somewhere else and try to build a better life, that's terrifying. You leave your family, your friends, your circles, you leave everything behind to go find this better life for your children. And if that isn't the epitome of a good mother and a good family, I don't know what is. Now, they did talk about how her husband, David, was not the greatest of characters, but at the same time, they did what they could for a better life for their children, and I give a tremendous credit to that, because that in and of itself is phenomenal. What should I do over the brow, over the eyelid? Should I go with this one? Is it cancel culture? Is that really what it's called? No. Can't wear cancel culture on my eyes. Candlelight. Cancel culture. I guess we're living in such a day of cancel culture that you never know. All right, let's try it. If it goes wrong, there's always tomorrow night. Oh, I forgot to tell you. Yes, I am working night 1 of 3. So we're getting this show on the road for the next few nights. And as usual, I'm behind. I had a lot to do today. I had car repairs. I had to go pick up a vehicle. It was in an area that was quite a ways away. I had to get an Uber, go get my car, run around, and I was jamming to try to get in bed and get myself to sleep at a reasonable hour. When I laid down today for my nap, I literally had to put my earbuds in, and I put my meditation sleep app on, because I needed to try to hurry and get myself to sleep, and I didn't fall asleep right away. It took me about 40 minutes before I fell asleep, but I did fall asleep, and that's what matters. I got to sleep at least a few hours on the day of my shift in order to be worth anything tonight. It's kind of a lot of bronze for one night. Wow. I'm going to probably darken the outer area here real quick. I know I'm in a hurry, but I also have to look around me. Woo! Okay, now that I look not in the camera, this is something. I moved my camera to a slightly different angle because it was always just pivoted to the side on me. And now I have it where I kind of can't see the mirror as well. I'm looking through the camera. Let me just do a little dusting up here with my finger. I'm going to just pat and blend. This Lorac is a little creamier than some of my other shadows. I'm wiping it on my little washcloth over here. We're going to go and use some of the brown on my MAC palette to mute this out a little bit, or just give it some balance. I'm going to come this way so I can see a little better what I'm doing. We're going to give this a little wing up here. Too much? Never too much. Trust the process. Remember? Trust the process. That's what we do. So hearing about Henrietta Lacks during wartime era and the things that went into steel mills and engineering and all of the stuff that was going on, and asbestos being such a big thing back at that time, there was not a real great understanding about a number of things, including how asbestos affected people, how men who worked in certain industries could bring home carcinogens to their wives, to their pregnant wives, to their wives in general, in addition to themselves. Doctors and people who are working in the sciences area, you got to remember radium was all the rage. Everything. Do you remember when I don't know if you remember, or you've read or you heard in your history classes or science histories, how radium was thought to be healthy, and it was like something that was touted as like it was put in watches, it was put in jewelry. They thought that this radioactive material was going to make you superhuman or something. No studies, of course, showed that it wasn't going to do that, of course. But scientists should have known that if it was going to destroy cells and they were going to use it in cancer treatment, maybe you shouldn't carry it around in vials in your pocket. They were talking in the story, too, about how when she went for her treatment of her ovarian, it wasn't ovarian, it was cervical cancer. When she went for treatment of this cancer, how one of the doctors who was treating her ultimately succumbed and died because of the fact that he was carrying the radium vials, couriering them back and forth from where he picked them up in vials in his pocket. And he died at a very tender young age. And note to self, don't carry radium around in your pocket. But I'm sure people learned, I hope. It just goes to show that although sciences might, take leaps and bounds in some regard, we need to like really be careful before we jump ahead of ourselves. And testing is so important. Understanding the science that we're using is incredibly important. I think about even things like space exploration now. We are well aware that we don't know everything about surfaces of other planets that we are visiting. We know very little about the solar system and the things that are out there. We know we're exploring, but there can be things out there that can be very hazardous to us. And that's why when people go to space, they have to go into quarantine upon return. And there are certain protocols in place. Will it handle everything that we know or don't know? Or, they say you don't know what you don't know. And so there's always things in science that put us at risk for exposure of things later. So we have to be really in tune with that. And when people lose track of the scientific method and the principles behind testing and safety, they always say, as nurses, we know this, a sentinel event will occur when more than 2 safety measures have been bypassed. Again, I say it again, a sentinel event, one of the precursors for a sentinel event occurring is when 2 safety measures have been bypassed and carried on. So usually whenever you hear of some catastrophic thing that has happened in our world, you will hear about what protocols were bypassed or how somebody got past a security measure or something else. That goes for even things like 9/11. We look back at the security bypasses that happened the day of the event. And there were measures in place that, and then measures in place that got more stringent later. But there were things that got missed along the way. And there were things that didn't get missed along the way. There were things that, were found and, probably crisis averted because some people were, working their A game that day and didn't let things happen. So we have to say kudos to people like that. But what's funny is that is usually an unpopular opinion. I'm going in here with my little pencil I use up here instead of the powder tonight, just to kind of give a little highlight to the bone right there. You like that? See the shimmer? It stays a little longer. It has a different kind of consistency. And when I put my eyebrows on, it will blend nicely, I hope. I'm going to blend this out a little bit. I got a little too much right there. I need to book it. Come on, Kimberly, get your ass in gear. I'm going to go with the Anastasia, the black today, and we're doing it. Let's get into it. All right. I'm not trying to be disrespectful in any way to Henrietta Lacks Story. I'm just doing my get ready with me and talking about what I have learned so far. And if I quote or misquote any of the story, please let me know if you've read it or you are reading it. Like, I want to hear your take on things too and how it affects you or what you think about things. I am just still processing a lot of it. Okay, we're going in with the black. Here we go. We're gonna put a big blob on there. I do. Hold up. All right. So, have you read the book? Are you reading the book? There are 2 books out there. There was one by Ron Lacks. And I was interested in both, but I really wanted to digest this story because of a couple reasons. This author who wrote the story, she kind of made it her life's mission from the time she was 16 years old and learned the first little bit that she had learned in a lab in an early, community college class, when all that anyone said about Henrietta Lacks was that she was a black woman, and there was nothing else. And she kind of went on a personal mission to get to know Mrs. Lacks' family. And she had so many questions about how the mother of science could only be known as just a black woman. She knew that there had to be more to her depth, her story, and so she spent about 10 years conducting interviews, scientists, family members, getting to know her daughter, and really giving it, to me, it sounds like giving respect and grace and understanding to a very complex story about a very complex woman. And the thing is Henrietta Lacks was complex. We're all very complex. But knowing that literally she was I want to call her the birth mother of science, because if you get into how much her cells and what she did contributed to science, there is not a lab in this world that's doing any kind of healthcare research that doesn't have Henrietta Lacks cells in their lab. When they talk about her cells being replicated and that just on a cellular level, that it could wrap the earth almost 3 times in the trillion, that there was more cells replicated and used to this day of her than ever even occurred in her whole entire body at the time. Like, what would she have thought of that? I think that's a phenomenal thing. Like, if it were me, like, what would she think of that? I mean, she would probably be just astounded at any of this. And although it's an amazing tribute to her life and who she was, there's still the sad part about this, that she never knew that her cells were going to be replicated, used, and sold and everything else, open market, to contribute to science. She never consented to it. It was all just done without her consent, which is the most disgusting part of all of this, is that there is no such thing as just implied consent. You get consent or you don't. Implied consent in this day and age is a no. So I think she would have appreciated knowing that her cells have contributed, but she also had the right as a human being, as a woman, and she had the right to make those decisions on her own without having them being made for her. And that was what I find incredibly demeaning and wrong and unfair, is that she didn't get the chance to even approve whether these cells were going to be used or not. So I think it's important to understand why there is distrust in healthcare, where these feelings are rooted at, why it's there, and how we got here. Because there is distrust in healthcare. There is distrust in certain communities with healthcare because of how people were treated and how their bodies were used without consent in a number of ways back at times when inequality was at its I won't say at its peak. It was just inequality in general. And we condemn Nazi Germans, scientists, for using the cells and the bodies of Jewish people in concentration camps. But how was what we did any better? It wasn't. Sorry, I gotta get this off my eyelashes before it becomes a thing. What we did, and I say we because collective, I'm part of a whole generation of new scientists, and we because it's our history, all of us. And what we did back at that time was we did something without someone's consent, and it was no better than what they were doing in Nazi Germany. They used people's bodies and their things without consent. And what happened to Henrietta Lack and her family, the disrespect of utilizing her and profiting off of her and not getting consent, was no different. Just because they say she wasn't tortured and maimed and gassed, it doesn't mean that it was wrong. It doesn't mean that it wasn't wrong. It still was wrong. From an ethical perspective, what happened to her and her family in the years after that, you can't put, it's Pandora's box. You can't put rain back in a cloud. And once those cells were out and being used and the things were going, it was done. There was just no care to what went on, even until, you look at the 70s, 80s and on, when the story started coming to light through writers like the one who wrote this book. Things in history tend to be buried. They tend to be washed and sanitized for what a lot of scientists would think the greater good. And there's no such thing as the greater good when someone is violated the way she was. So I do think that science was, propelled, catapulted in a way from what was done, but at the same time, it doesn't justify the means. The ends doesn't justify the means. It still was very wrong, and I will stand by that. I'm grateful for her. I'm grateful for our daughters and granddaughters, and for women in as a whole who have benefited from her, who will not, have disease, polio, cancer. If there's any kind of groundbreaking treatment from 1951 forward to now, I guarantee you, if you go back to the studies, Henrietta Lacks was part of it. So I don't think there could be anything more profound than that. And I give her tremendous gratitude. I thank her. I would like to say I'm sorry to her for what she went through, and I'm sorry to her family for what they went through, knowing what they knew and feeling that they had been manipulated and used. Because long after Henrietta Lacks died, the doctors at the hospital at Johns Hopkins continued to contact her family because they wanted more. They wanted to know more. They told the family that they were helping them with under the guise of getting medical treatment, but they were running tests on her family and asking for blood samples and everything else so that they could try to continue research on the genetic line that Henrietta Lacks provided. And again, the wrong continued, which, I don't know, I'm shaking my head at that too. So I want to say thank you. I want to say I hope that this is a lesson to us in history, that this can't ever happen again. Will it happen again? I think it will. I think that there are things all the time that happen, especially when you look at, you hear news stories and things such as stuff that has happened with IVF treatment, people who have, had their fertilized eggs on ice, or things happened with doctors who were practicing unethically. There's always going to be the possibility that, abuses can happen. But from a healthcare and a ethical standpoint, I think it's important that our scientists and our healthcare providers are held to the highest standard. And I know as a medical professional, we are held to very high standards. We are held to unbelievably high standards, and there's a reason why. And there are oaths that we take because things have happened, and we want to protect the public. We want to undo the mess, and there's no undoing it, of distrust in healthcare so that people can get the healthcare that they need. So I'm still learning with this book. Like I said, I'm very early on in it. I would like to read some excerpts from the book, maybe on another video, and go over some of my commentary on some of the things that I read. And if you're interested in that, please drop a comment down below. I'd like to hear your thoughts. And yeah, let's get into that too. I love books. I love reading. I love listening to audiobooks in my transit times, and when I'm doing things at home, I like to keep the wheels turning. So much healthier than just consuming fast food kind of content on some of the socials. I do like that too. I really do. But I love getting into true, stories and biographies and histories and things that surround my nursing practice. And I hope that if you haven't dove into reading, or you haven't dove into learning about, history and healthcare, or any kind of other, just even nonfiction, like stories, I would encourage you to do it. There is something very freeing and very healthy about it. Learning something new every day is amazing. And the brain is like a plant that needs watering. It needs good, healthy things to go into it so we can, digest things and learn and, kind of facilitate those into our own lives. I know that, every book I've read kind of gets tucked into the bank somewhere back there, and I've learned something, and I hope you will too. So I am going to be starting I think I'm on chapter 2 right now, chapter 2 or 3. Probably be listening to it on my way to work tonight, which I need to hurry. Ooh. So, again, let me know what you're reading. If there's a must read, let me know. Oh, I hate this part of my neck. We know that. Ooh, ooh, ooh. What is going on in your world? It's been very busy in the year. Not looking forward to tonight. But when am I? I am and I'm not. I love what I do, but sometimes it's been kind of crazy lately. So it's had its moments. All right, we're getting there. I'm gonna get this done in the next 2 to 3 minutes. I think so. I still gotta put my bronzer on. I gotta do a quick dry. My hair's almost dry already. I washed it. Today was an everything shower. Don't you love those? Where's my bronzer? There she is. I got my Rare Beauty, Happy Soul. What else? Oh, I am, speaking of learning and reading, I don't even know if I should say this out loud. I'm studying to take a test right now. I'm just doing it little by little. I'm taking the CEN exam. Yes, I am. I just committed it out loud to the universe, so I am going to be doing that here coming up. And so, yeah, you'll probably hear me stressing out in some of my videos coming up about it. I don't know if I'm stressing out. I've been a nurse for 25 years, but I don't know everything. And I guarantee you it's going to take some studying because there's always something we don't know. I don't care how long you've been a nurse, no matter how long you've been doing anything, there's always something to learn and always something you can brush up on. Practice has changed all the time. I mean, every time I take ACLS, I'm like, oh, what? That's different. You know, so there's always something new that you can learn. And the minute you think that there's nothing else to learn, you've done it all. One, you're lying to yourself and you're probably not really looking into all the things you could still be learning about. Or two, if you really feel that way, it's probably time to move on and do something else. And if you're feeling stagnant, like there's nothing else to learn, then maybe it's a good time. But if you are feeling like you've done something forever and you haven't done a certification or a class or interested in doing something, then do it. It's never too late to learn more. And it's never too late to do another certification or go back to school. I don't care how old you are. You can always, be a lifelong learner and keep learning. I'm feeling very pasty tonight, so we're doing this. Eyebrows need to go on. Doing some of my gimme brow. Going in just a little whoop. I'm doing my sound effects with it. So it's been a beautiful spring day today. I wish I was out playing instead of having to run errands and go to sleep. But that's life, right? We got to pay the bills. Got to go do our jobs. Go do them well. Go into it with an attitude of gratitude. Try to remember why you're doing this job in the first place. And remember that the only thing you can control on any given day is your own attitude. And that is not something, I'm not trying to be insulting in any way. I'm sincere because I have to tell myself that often and regular. The only thing I can control is how I perceive things and my own attitude. And go into the, situations with an attitude of gratitude, being grateful for the gifts I'm given and the opportunities that I have every single day, and keep my head on straight, because when things are going sideways at work, sometimes it can feel like the attitude of gratitude gets put in the back burner. But that said, I am grateful for my job. I'm grateful for my patients. I'm grateful that I've been given this wonderful career. Not given, I worked for it, but I'm very fortunate to be in the job that I am right now. And I feel like I'm blessed every single day because of it. And I hope I'm not making too much noise with my brushes down here. How did I do? All right. Let me see. I'm going to go with this is a Rare Beauty lip liner. And I checked the colors on my lipstick. I'm doing the X. I kind of have so it just depends. I have my Cupid's bow is a little more defined. I So because of that, I do the X method right here. And then I put a little right there, just to darken that little spot. So I checked them. I actually didn't realize it, but my 2 Charlottes I have are both Pillow Talk Fair. So that's that. I like the color and works for me. I hope you're having a wonderful Friday and you're getting ready to have a wonderful weekend. I'm going to be working this weekend, so at least you know your ERs are staffed. So I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I thank you for being here. So please subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, and I will see you on the flip side.